Cynthia Cooper did not merely compliment Caitlin Clark. She treated the moment like it deserved the full spotlight, almost like she rolled out the carpet, cued the applause, and made sure everybody watching understood they were looking at something special. It came off polished, genuine, and honestly pretty refreshing in a league conversation that too often turns into some weird exercise in withholding credit. Then you have Sheryl Swoopes, who somehow managed to bring the exact opposite energy, like she arrived carrying a basket full of side-eye, resentment, and enough shade to darken the whole arena. This was not normal basketball analysis anymore. It felt more like an old grudge match dressed up as commentary, with microphones instead of lockers and decades of baggage hanging in the air. Cooper brought grace to the conversation, while Swoopes looked like she was campaigning for the all-time award in unnecessary bitterness. If you support Caitlin and Cynthia, then comment CC and Coop down below.
One word to describe Caitlin Clark.
Amazing.
Yes.
A beast. She is the truth.
Then in steps Cynthia Cooper, a true icon, a foundational star, the kind of player who did not just score points but helped drag an entire young league into legitimacy through force of greatness and sheer will. When she joined the Caitlin Clark discussion, she did not toss in some lazy opinion and move on. She raised the level of the entire conversation. Cooper's praise sounded thoughtful, specific, and intentional, not like some half-hearted, yeah, she's pretty good nonsense thrown out to be polite. It sounded like a real legend recognizing real impact when she saw it. On the other side, Swoopes keeps reacting to Caitlin Clark like the sound of her name alone sets off some internal alarm siren. Every time Clark trends, here comes another blast of negativity. If Envy had its own box score, Sheryl would be putting up MVP numbers.
We get to sit down with another legend today.
GOAT status.
I just want to read some accolades real quick before I introduce this person. Two-time NCAA champ at SC. Won the first 4 WNBA championships.
How many?
4 straight.
Okay, make sure.
Was the finals MVP of all 4 chips.
How many?
4.
Okay.
Yeah. 8-time overseas scoring champ. I mean, and that's just some of the accolades. Welcome to the show, the one and only, Miss Cynthia Cooper.
All right.
So let's get into what is actually going on here. Cynthia Cooper watched Caitlin Clark do the things that have made her must-see television, the pull-up bombs from the logo, the absurd passes that look impossible until they land right in somebody's hands, the command of the floor that makes everything feel one step faster than everyone else. And Cooper identified it correctly. She saw greatness, plain and simple. She basically said what any honest observer could see. This player has the goods. Because she does. Clark has the court vision of an all-time point guard, the shooting gravity of a superstar from another era of basketball entirely, and the calm demeanor of someone who has somehow already learned how to live in chaos without letting it touch her. Cooper saw all of that and understood exactly what it means for the WNBA.
It's amazing how different somebody like Cynthia Cooper is to Sheryl Swoopes. They played together, but the difference in the hateration, the pettiness, the jealousy that comes from one former player versus the other former player is stark.
Meanwhile, Swoopes seems permanently stuck in a lab somewhere trying to manufacture reasons why none of it should count. Like she is starring in some bargain bin sports documentary called Caitlin Clark and the Mystery of Why the Numbers Keep Being Real.
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
Right? So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year, and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record?
And we also cannot ignore Sheryl Swoopes trying to do amateur revisionist history with the record books. She actually pushed the idea that Clark should not be recognized as the true NCAA scoring leader because of an extra year that Clark literally did not even take. Think about how ridiculous that is. We are talking about an imaginary season being used to discredit an actual accomplishment. At the same time, Angel Reese can put together a stat line that looks rough enough to set off alarms, poor shooting, ugly turnovers, fouls everywhere, the whole mess, and Swoopes still treats it like she just uncovered the next all-time great. That is not objective basketball analysis. That is selective devotion depending on who the player is. If Clark erupts for 40, suddenly we are supposed to ask suspicious questions. If Reese grinds her way into a double-double while the offense sputters, then apparently the sport has been reinvented before our eyes.
Caitlin Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
Here we go.
I know you like that.
Hell yeah.
I said that because when she comes to the league, regardless of what team she goes to that has vets on that team, she probably ain't gonna get 40 shots a game.
And the problem with Swoopes is not just that the opinions are weak. It is that she delivers them at maximum volume. Loud, relentless, impossible to ignore volume. While everybody else is watching Clark create offense like a magician with a basketball, Swoopes is acting like the chairwoman of some anti-Caitlin committee, as if giving credit to a phenomenal young star would somehow erase what previous generations accomplished. It is such a strange posture. She behaves like Caitlin Clark's success is some hostile takeover rather than one of the best things to happen to the sport in years.
3 WNBA MVPs in your career. Would you consider each of those 3 seasons as dominant seasons for yourself?
No.
I can't. Bro, Sheryl Swoopes is willing to lie about her own career before she even admits that Caitlin is dominant.
Meanwhile, Angel Reese, the player Swoopes, seems determined to elevate at every opportunity, has already run into the hard reality of professional basketball. Her role got adjusted, and not by accident. Why? Because Chicago would actually prefer an offense that functions and a lineup that gives them a chance to score efficiently. In college, Reese made a living cleaning up misses, dominating the glass, and piling up effort stats that could overwhelm weaker competition. But in the WNBA, where size, speed, discipline, and defensive responsibility are on another level, those cracks get exposed fast. Suddenly, the numbers do not hit the same, and those box scores are not exactly lighting up the internet. And since we are talking about reality, let's talk numbers that actually matter. Caitlin Clark is not just popular. She is moving crowds, selling tickets, and producing audience attention on a level that in some places has outpaced what NBA teams are drawing. Reese, meanwhile, has not come close to matching that kind of pull. For all the bold talk about bringing in eyeballs too, the evidence has been pretty brutal. The audience clearly knows where the main attraction is.
And I mean, she's the truth, and she was a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Knock down the three-pointer, get to the rim. She can get to the free throw line. She's
the
crafty.
ball.
Yeah, very crafty.
Crafty. So sometimes she look like she's coming off for a three-point shot and she backdoors you for a layup. She gets her teammates involved. She can pass. She can shoot. Man, she is the complete basketball player.
And while Clark is busy smashing records, creating headlines, and handling the media with more polish than a lot of seasoned veterans, she still gets talked about like she is some outsider who wandered into a space she did not earn. That part is honestly absurd. There are people who react to her success like it must be some error in the system, as if the league accidentally produced a star who is too effective, too visible, and too impossible to ignore. At the same time, some members of the old guard seem desperate to protect whatever influence they still have left, gripping it like their entire identity depends on not letting the spotlight shift. Somewhere along the line, simply celebrating a new star turned into a political issue. And that says a lot more about the critics than it does about Caitlin Clark.
So we all know these WNBA veterans, for the most part, has not been very welcoming besides your Sue Birds, your Cheryl Millers, and a few others. But when it comes to Sheryl Swoopes and them, oh, there's some serial haters, bruh. Now, Lisa Leslie, she been all right, but she criticized the time too. But with all that being said, Cynthia Cooper made it her business to big up Caitlin Clark.
That is exactly why Cynthia Cooper's comments landed the way they did. She brought some badly needed clarity back into the conversation. Her message was basically, can everyone stop pretending that giving Caitlin Clark credit is some kind of betrayal? And with that, she reminded people what actual greatness looks like when it speaks. Real legends are not panicked by the next wave. They are not insecure every time a younger star gets attention. They recognize excellence because they know excellence. They hand over respect without trying to set the bridge on fire behind them. So while Cooper is showing what maturity, confidence, and class look like, Swoopes is still acting like she cannot process the idea that the game moved forward without asking her permission first.
You know what I want to see? You know, so many people talked about Sabrina and Steph, you know, with that three-point shooting contest. You know what I want to see in the WNBA All-Star game? I want to see Sabrina Ionescu shoot against Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, me too.
I want to see that three-point shooting contest.
Yeah, facts. That's dope. Hopefully it'll be there. It's in Indiana this year, right?
It is really the same reality being filtered through two completely different mindsets. Cooper looks at Caitlin Clark and sees a brilliant player changing the shape of the league. Swoopes looks at the same player and acts like somebody is trying to pass off fake jewelry as the real thing. Please.
And I heard you gave me my flowers. Oh, I'm gonna cry. I got a little emotional. So I'm also gonna return this to you. One, because you deserve it.
Thank you.
As a Black woman, to watch you walk in your truth, regardless of what everybody says, how they feel. Perfect name for this podcast. I love how you just keep proving.
Caitlin Clark is not just having a nice run or putting up empty noise. She is materially changing the business and visibility of the WNBA. She is bringing in sponsorships, filling seats, driving conversation, and turning fever gear into something kids want to wear everywhere. That is not hype detached from substance. That is impact. And yet every mention of her still seems to trigger another round of debate, like we are all trapped in some endless hearing where the central complaint is that she might just be too good too soon.
I'm sitting there like, oh my God. But she's so crafty. This is what people don't know about Caitlin. She's not just a three-point shooter. She's a great passer, not a mediocre passer, not so-so. She is a great passer, but also she's crafty. I saw her get the ball, lay it up on the back door cut, like they waiting for her to pop out to the three-point line. Boom, she slips back door, gets that bucket. Like, she is crafty, and she's just a rookie. She's just a rookie. That level of greatness, that level of play on a consistent basis as a rookie puts you up in the upper echelon of any league, definitely the W.
Here's a friendly public service announcement for Sheryl Swoopes. If Cynthia Cooper, one of the fiercest and most accomplished players of her generation, can praise Caitlin Clark without acting like her legacy is under attack, then surely you can survive giving a respectful nod without treating it like a personal crisis. Or don't. That is your choice. Just stop acting shocked when fewer and fewer people are willing to stamp approval on opinions that feel overcooked, oversalted, and way too predictable. As for Caitlin, the message stays simple. Keep stacking records, keep your composure, and keep letting the game speak at full volume. Somebody also needs to hand Sheryl a fresh box score and a giant ice-cold cup of humility, because if the numbers could talk back, they would probably be applauding Clark while staring at Swoopes like, are you reading us, or are you just making things up as you go? The evidence is not hiding. Caitlin is doing heavy lifting for the entire league, and Sheryl keeps reacting like Clark is some unwanted guest instead of the player bringing electricity to the whole neighborhood.
Cynthia Cooper. Oh boy, I think she may have made Sheryl Swoopes a little bit salty. I can see that.
She averaged 31.6, 7.4 rebounds, 9 assists, right? Did anyone expect her to do that in WNBA?
Those three? No.
Right? So she didn't do that.
No.
Now, if we say her stats are today, what?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But
That's crazy.
5.6
Those are
turnovers
hell of a number.
Those are hell of a numbers.
rookie.
But to me, that's not.
And while we are here, let's spend a second on Angel Reese, or more specifically, on Sheryl Swoopes' ongoing campaign to treat Angel Reese like every appearance is a coronation. Every time Reese steps on the floor, Swoopes talks like history is being made in real time, whether the performance matches that tone or not. Honestly, you could build a whole party game around it. Take one sip every time effort gets praised after a rough shooting night. Take two if the officiating becomes the villain. Finish the glass if fouling out suddenly gets spun into some deep lesson about growth and leadership. It is absurd-level spin control. Meanwhile, Reese's production has not exactly been moving in the right direction. Rebounding numbers have slipped. Minutes have gotten less secure. Her role keeps changing to the point that Chicago sometimes looks like it is still trying to figure out where exactly she fits best. Even Sky fans have had moments where the scoreboard tells a very different story from the hype they were sold. It is starting to feel like buying an expensive designer item, only to realize it looks flashy but does not actually function the way you hoped. But somehow the finger still gets pointed at Caitlyn, apparently because dropping 30 points efficiently and then acting normal afterward is now considered offensive.
I can see the salt. I can see the sweat beads coming out of Sheryl Swoopes' forehead right now, while her former teammate, who won 4 WNBA championships with her, 4. And she's getting on here and she's telling the world Caitlin Clark is the truth.
What really seems to bother Sheryl is that Caitlyn's greatness does not arrive with a marching band attached to it. There are no constant taunts, no social media theater, no endless look-at-me moments after every bucket. She just goes out there and destroys teams in a calm, surgical, almost casual way. The performance is the show. The skill is the headline. It is precise, ruthless, and impossible to miss when the cameras are on. Imagine being so uncomfortable with somebody else's excellence that every time they write a new chapter, your first instinct is to start editing reality so your own story still feels bigger.
I would have put Caitlin Clark on Team USA, absolutely. Any USA basketball experience for someone as young as Caitlin Clark is going to benefit America for years and years and years and years. So yeah, I would have put her absolutely on Team USA.
That is why Cynthia Cooper's recent comments mattered so much. They were not just kind words from an all-time great. They were an instant correction to months of bad faith noise. Cooper did the thing Swoopes easily could have done, but refused to do. She helped the sport by embracing the brightest star currently pushing it forward. Instead, Sheryl is still standing on top of this dented anti-Caitlyn machine, yelling into the wind while the whole thing is coming apart underneath her. At this point, the commitment to the anti-Clark agenda is almost remarkable just for how stubborn it is. Whether it is pride, ego, resentment, or some unexplained irritation every time Iowa gets mentioned, who even knows anymore? What is clear is that all this energy would be much better used breaking down the actual basketball instead of replaying the same grudge in different costumes. Because here is the part that should be obvious to anyone trying to speak honestly about the state of the league. You cannot claim you care about the future of women's basketball while also taking shots at the player doing the most to pull that future forward. Let's be serious, Caitlyn is the engine right now. The television attention, the packed arenas, the jersey sales, the casual fans suddenly paying attention. That is all tied to her impact. This is not some abstract idea where the league might maybe benefit someday. We are watching the lift happen in real time. And yes, Reese has had notable moments, but let's not pretend a viral stare or a carefully timed post online is what is driving the most explosive surge of interest this league has seen in years. That is not the story, no matter how badly some people want to force it.
I wish, Caitlin Clark had that experience this year because she's our future.
Now look at how Caitlyn has handled all of this nonsense. While Sheryl and everybody else in that orbit keep tossing little comments, eye rolls, and passive-aggressive remarks around like it is lunch period in high school, Clark has stayed locked in. No public meltdowns, no dramatic response tour, no podcast confessionals trying to settle scores. She just keeps showing up, keeps playing at an elite level, and keeps speaking to the media with a calm professionalism that a lot of public figures could learn from. She has had every opportunity to throw gasoline on the fire, and instead she keeps taking the high road while drilling shots and letting her critics unravel on their own. That is part of what makes this so frustrating for them. Their window for relevance keeps shrinking, while she keeps looking more and more like the standard. Here is a useful rule for life and sports. Refusing to acknowledge obvious greatness does not make you principled. It makes you look bitter. That is exactly why Cynthia Cooper's praise landed with such force. It cut straight through all the static and nonsense like a dagger at the buzzer. She did not simply compliment Caitlin Clark. She exposed the insecurity of everyone who has been going out of their way not to.
The Indiana Fever are that golden destination, and I can't help but laugh to the fans and the people online and the media commentators, unfortunately, who said that nobody wanted to play in Indiana. That doesn't make any sense.
And Cooper's comments carried weight for another reason too. She did not just praise a younger player, she modeled what leadership actually looks like. She saw that the game is shifting, she welcomed that shift, and she passed along respect the way a real legend does, with confidence and zero insecurity attached. No weird tension, no backhanded compliments, no bitterness tucked between the lines. Meanwhile, Sheryl still seems stuck backstage whispering hopes into a stat sheet and waiting for one more rebound to magically turn into proof of a whole different reality. It is tiring to watch, yes, but it is also revealing. It tells you exactly who is secure in what they built and who is still looking over their shoulder. The truth is pretty simple. Real legends do not barricade the spotlight when the next star shows up. They open it wider. Real greatness knows greatness when it sees it. And real fans can tell the difference between empty hype and actual history unfolding in front of them. Caitlin Clark is not some over-promoted trend that people will laugh about later. She is the history. She is the moment. She is the player reshaping the conversation right now, whether certain critics are emotionally prepared for it or not. Cynthia Cooper understood that immediately. Too bad everybody else has not caught up yet. If you support Caitlin and Cynthia, then comment CC and Coop down below, like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.